What's up, everyone? Welcome to a new episode of Moving with Life. Today's going to be a little more conjoined, more kind of together with the Music Never Stops segment. I know I've been doing a lot of Music Never Stop, a lot of Music Never Stops segments over the past few weeks, just because at the end of the day, it's been what's kind of gotten me through, just everything. And I feel good. I've gone back into my running. I've only been doing a couple miles, so nothing crazy, but still just trying to now get back into that rhythm that I've already had it before. I've already done it before. Doing miles and miles prior to me stopping in the first place. Anyways, I digress. But so basically today's episode it is Moving with Life, because the first little video that I want to bring is a Tim Ferriss excerpt from Tom Bilyeu's Impact Theory podcast. And I'm going to let it run first, and then we'll get into why it's relevant, because it has been a part of, it is a part of just my processes, and it makes sense to me. So let's get into the first video, and then we'll go from there.
That's a good one, right? And just absorbing, not even absorbing, just reading and watching and listening to more isn't enough. Like, you have to apply it. You have to use incentives. You have to have rewards and punishments set for yourself so you actually get things done, timelines, etc. So that's one. Another one is don't be a donkey. And so he says that to himself all the time, like, don't be a donkey, don't be a donkey. And the reason is, there's I want to say it might be a philosopher's paradox, but I don't think it is. I think it's just a parable about Buridan's ass. So Buridan's ass is about a donkey. Yeah, too much caffeine. So it's about a donkey who is thirsty and hungry. And there's water on one side, a few feet away, and hay on the other. And he can't decide whether to do the hay first, or the water. The hay or the water. And he dies of thirst at the end of it. He couldn't do them sequentially. Right. So this is Derek's recommendation to his younger self, and really to any 20 or 30 something, but it applies to everybody, which is, in effect, you can do almost everything you want in life, but you can't do it at the same time. Right. And if you can just dedicate yourself to one thing for even a year, and then the next thing for a year, you can do those 10 things. But if you try to do all 10 at once, you're going to be Buridan's ass. You're going to be like, should I do this? Should I do this? Or should I focus on this? Or should I focus on this? So don't be a donkey.
So that's the first piece, first little excerpt. And so I looked up, it's Buridan's. So he pronounced it Burdens. The way it's I think spelled on the actual YouTube video, it's like Burdians or something. Anyway, so it's Buridan's ass, which is, so it is a paradox in philosophy, is what I was able to find online. But there's no specific philosopher. It's just a paradox that came out of philosophy. And it's relevant for me because that's also where I've been. That's also been I've been honestly not so far in my mind, but it's like, I want to give an example. I want to do photography. Okay. And I like playing music, but it's like, I don't know what to do with it. I have my guitar here. It's like, what do I do? Podcasting. I like reading books. I like music. I don't play drums anymore, but I really like DC. I love DCI and the whole thing. And then obviously you saw in episode 20, the Music Never Stops. We saw episode 27. We did the comparison of Phantom Regiment's 2003 show and 2021 show for Harmonic Journey. And so that episode is actually a good kind of re-entry for me, because it's like, you know what? In seeing this little excerpt, I'm like, let me just do it. Let me do something that I do enjoy, and maybe you don't know. Maybe you are, you're going down the path that you want to go down to. But I know I fall into a category a lot of the times where I stop myself from. I'm in my own way. Not that I stop myself, but in the sense I do, because I'm in my own way of trying to accomplish things, and that's where I had been on the latter part of these last 2 months. Obviously, there's things that happen, and you can see an episode of The Music Never Stops, episode 26, And that'll kind of summarize just everything, prior to me now kind of diving back in and going forward with moving with life, and the music never stops. And so if you feel like so he's talking, he just said Derek because he'd already done Derek Sivers as an introduction to this little piece of the excerpt. So Derek Sivers is I'll say entrepreneur, businessman, but he's the one who created CD Baby. For people in the music industry, they'll probably be more familiar with it. But if you've heard of CD Baby, Derek Sivers he's the man that kind of created it. He was the creator, I think, founder. And I know musicians and songwriters that have used it. But the main thing I had gotten from him, along with this prior to even this was he has another good quote of if it's not a hell yeah, then don't do it. And so that's just a minor. I just want to give that little background because I definitely try to keep that. I'm like, man, is this really a hell yeah for me? Because if it's not, then I should probably just keep siphoning through other things that interest me, the interest, or get my curiosity running, and then until I find that hell yeah again, right? So, one thing I can honestly say is like just doing the podcast. Yes, I need to figure out. Yes, I need me doing one episode a week kind of makes sense for me because it allows me to have time to think and write and read if I want to, or when I find these excerpts that I forgot about, or finding new content that interests me, that gets my mind thinking and brings out my opinions and how I think things should be done. Excuse me. And doing a podcast once a week allows me to do that. So yeah, that was just one that I at least wanted to get this off my chest. That's also because on the ladder of August 26th, on the ladder of that, it got back into like, well, what do I want to do this, but I also want to do that, and I want to get back into vlogging, but how do I incorporate it? How do I incorporate that into my into my life at the moment, right? And so because of all these things, like, oh, let me just get back to at least what I can do, what is in my control for now. And then when time comes that I can kind of move on and do other things, and I'll let that happen, And it's funny because even when I was watching this before just starting this episode right now, I was like, why? I guess I have been doing that, ever since high school. I've kind of stuck to one thing as I've gone through my little trials and tribulations, because it's like I got through high school. I played baseball, up to junior year. I did band all the time. So, but it was always one thing. It was always one thing at a time. Now that I think about it, because it was band and baseball, but it was 2 different seasons. So they never really got in the way they never really got in the way, period. Right. And so then when I got out, it's like, okay, now I'm out of high school. Now I'm going to college and going through the degrees. I made all those quick changes. And it's like I found business, and then now I got to study business, and I happened to be working, which it was all correlated. So it was all business driven, leadership driven, management driven, and it was still one thing. Then as I was one thing I guess obvious to me, maybe it's not obvious to you, I don't know, but another obvious measure is becoming the musician that I want to become, and being turned down the very first time I auditioned for a gig was probably the best part, because then I doubled down on just practicing, learning. I think I probably learned 150 songs in the matter of months, and at the latter of those songs, they weren't perfected immediately, but I was starting to just gain momentum, gain ground. And I was just kind of burning through, so that I could then pick up that gig it's like 6 months ish later. It was like June, July, because it was summertime of 2012, and then November 2012 was when I landed the paying gig, and that kind of really kicked me off into 2013. Because in 2013 I just gigged anywhere and everywhere that I was able to. And so then I did that for a total of 6 years, and then that I lost some weight. I got really because then in 2015, 2016 is when I got introduced to podcasting and Jocko Willink, Joe Rogan, all these guys, and Onnit supplements, and and I was counting my calories, and 2016 was like a whole transition year for me. As I think I was turning 25 at the time, and Dr. Rhonda, being introduced to Dr. Rhonda Patrick. So it's like I was doing music, but then during my daytime, I was training, but I was training myself, but training others, starting to train others, and I found an interest in that. But in that, the bigger picture that's kind of developed into the podcast started in 2017. But then, one thing I've learned, and one thing that I've held to an important important priority for me, is my interactions with people. When I converse with them, when I'm listening to them, trying to hear them, trying to understand trying to make sure I understand what you all are saying when we're having conversation. New people that I've met, my friends, as we're all kind of exchanging ideas, whether it's music, whether it's business, and the cool thing is having friends in kind of these little modules of interests that I then kind of see where I fit in this whole thing. And that's one thing. And so now we're here, and this podcast is continuing as to the best of my ability. Cause I don't know if I've ever said it before. I had to, I'm assuming I have, but like, just to reiterate, as far as like my overthinking and trying to do multiple things at once, like, man, like I've always found a way to kind of balance maybe two things at once, but when I'm doing the one, like my letter, whenever I'm doing my choice A, I'm 100% there. When I'm doing my choice B, I'm 100% there. So it's like, now that I'm working in the hospital, it's like when I'm there, that's all I'm doing. I'm worried about my patients. I'm worried about the people I'm working with, and not worried like the definition word, but just like that's where my focus is. I'm not worried. I'm not thinking about anything that's not anything that's outside my control, anything that's outside the hospital. In those moments, in those shifts. So then when I come home, it's kind of like, yeah, whenever I'm not at the hospital, it's like I try my best to mitigate via running and trying to exert some of that, just the stresses that come along with it. But it then involves me in bringing me back to the podcast. So that then brings me back to, I need to get outside for at least an hour a day, run a little, run a couple miles, run what I can right now, and trying to make that progression back. My goal is to get back to 4 miles. I was doing it so easily and so swiftly, back in 2018, I was just like, I was just pushing out 4 miles, 4 miles. I could do 4 miles in a night, and it'd be super simple. So yeah, I can't. And for me, if this can all make sense to Buridan's ass of being the donkey, not being able to choose the water from the hay. Do I want the water? Do I want the hay? And not letting myself drown or suffocate from not choosing either one. Just choosing one, then kind of going, and then moving on to my next thing. I just want to. I feel like I'm gonna roll right now. I just want to make sure I kind of left it all here on the table for this episode. Because I do want to dive into the next. I guess our second segment for this episode. Just make sure I'm good on time. I am good on time. And so, yeah, hopefully you can go back and rewatch this little piece, and if you need just a reiteration of what has been talked about, of choosing, if you have 10 things on your list, you can actually do them all, but you should. The ideal thing is to give all of yourself to that one thing at a time, and then you can move on, and then you can just start knocking out that list of whatever it is. There's some travel things that I have in my mind that today I started looking up pricing. I'm like, let me just look up pricing. I don't have a date of when I want to go, but I know where, and I know a couple of places that I want to go to. I'm like, let me just start looking at what is interesting about it that would make me want to buy, a plane ticket to go there. So there's that. There's an example of like, yes, but it's very much, kind of in the background. It's there, but it's in the background. One of my objectives for today was like record the podcast, record one or two podcasts if you can. And I was actually thinking about turning this into 2 podcasts, but I'm like, no, let me make this one bigger podcast. We're still gonna do our 30 minutes, but I could find myself tying the fact that I need to choose A or B, and just do A and B, but at their own designated times. Um, and by doing this extra plus a music piece, it would make sense. So next thing, The Voice started recently. I don't know when it started. It started recently, and I have Hulu, so it popped up on my Hulu like, oh, new season, blah blah blah. I said, oh, I'm pretty, and I haven't really kept up truly since Jordan Smith season, which was that was a few seasons ago, and I've seen stuff here and there. Me and Brian have exchanged videos because some of these artists, I will say, some of these artists are so creative. It's really awesome to see, and so I'm like, well, you know what? I haven't seen The Voice from top to bottom, an opening, judge like the turning of the chair turn, when they're choosing their teams. These guys, it's Blake Shelton, Ariana Grande's on, I think, for the first time this season, John Legend, and then Kelly Clarkson, and so I hadn't kept up in a minute. But I said, you know what? Let me watch this episode and see how it goes. First band out of the gate is the one we're gonna do right now, and I made sure that I could at least publish it on YouTube. I don't care about copyrights. I'm here to promote the music because the music is what moves me. And this trio, I think they're brothers and sisters. I didn't do the whole thing like with who chose them and whatever. I just wanted the music for this episode because it's pretty incredible. I want to listen to it again. You're gonna listen to it maybe for the first time. And I can talk about it a little bit, and we'll get out of here for tonight. But I know I definitely wanted to talk about this group because they're really, really good.
I hear a guitar.
Sounds country.
It's acoustic.
Whoa!
True spirit, he runs, wishing he could fly. Only to trip at the sound of goodbye.
Oh my God.
Love isn't lying, it's loose in a lady who leans, says she is lost. Choking
Yeah.
on hello.
Wow.
They are one person, they are two alone, they are three together, they are four.
So they got a four chair turn. I honestly, at this moment, I can't remember who they chose. I feel like it might have been Kelly Clarkson or Blake Shelton.
Your names or your group name?
And when I first heard, I was like, oh man, like they're really good. Okay, they're in pitch. And the main thing that even I listened to, like, okay, are they consistent? Because there were some people that came along after, and a couple, especially the again young in age, but not young in heart, I will say. But there's like a 15-year-old and there's an 18-year-old, and they're just a little flat. Like I can, for what it's worth, I could just hear that there were just certain notes that they just weren't hitting. I'm not the best singer, but I trust my ear a lot. I trust my ear a lot, and so that was that. So this was the first band out of the gate, and I was like, I hope their videos on YouTube so I can be able to to do this, because I knew I wanted. I didn't know if I was in. Oh, I knew I wanted to bring the podcast, and usually music I'll bring to The Music Never Stops. And today I'm like, you know what, let me do Moving with Life and Music Never Stops. It'll all make sense. Because I just want to talk about like how I'm very biased to harmonies. I'm very, very biased to harmonies. And so when I heard them, it's like, okay, they're on pitch, it's cool. And then there's like a little spot where the brother that visually on the one that's on the right, he then does his damn it. There's just a little silent into a single, but then they layer it because I don't even know the lyric. I don't even know what song it is. I should have probably looked it up. That's how excited I was and am about them singing, being now they're on The Voice, because he's saying by himself, and then I know the line's like two something, and then the sister comes up and it's like three of X, Y, and Z, right there. It's like something, 2, 3, and that they use the layers to then bring out the lyric, and that's so creative because that's shit that I don't think about. When I hear it's like, oh, now I'll think about it because I heard this idea from these people, versus being able to actually sit down and be like, oh, how about we just layer this, and how about we just layer this? That's just, it's incredible, and I wanted to bring it to today's episode because I know that music is something that's very important to me. So I know the Music Never Stops will continue. I had Matt from Southern Ashes. Hopefully, I hope you enjoyed that episode. He was on. You'll see this. Okay, so he was on technically last week. By the time you see this, he was on last week, and hopefully, if you're in the Valley, if you're down in Texas, you caught his shows over the weekend at Hillbillies. So I know that's going to continue. We have Moving with Life, and again, I have some thoughts, and then now it's just a matter of me taking that action, not being the donkey. Now we're wrapping up, and not being the donkey, and pushing forward. Pushing forward with the fact that I do like music, anything from trios and harmonies like this to then Phantom Regiment, drumlines, DCI, that whole thing. And for those of you that come along that are new, I appreciate it. For those of you that, maybe it's not in your taste, it's cool. Like, it's cool. But I slowly but surely, I am seeing what I need to do to be the most me for these podcast episodes. Whether it's The Music Never Stops or Moving with Life. And the Moving with Life, it's thinking about life. It's thinking about what actually does make sense to me that I want to promote. I look at freaking I downloaded the BBC News app to hope to get this like third party view of what's going on in the United States and around the world, and frankly half those things don't interest me. And I tried and it's because I think last time when I did a list recently, where is it? I'm trying to see if I can find it here in my notes. Because I guess around episode 136, 137, I was looking for like trends of the day on Twitter and this and that. So I downloaded BBC News and trying to continue that, because that was a cool little off. It was artists that don't like their own music, their own song. Specific 25. I think it's like 25 songs, 25 artists that don't like their songs, and that was the one. So far I haven't found anything new in the news that I find worth talking about. And I'm not even saying like that's like fascinating, but like that interests me. That stuff doesn't interest me. What interests me is like these comedians that are freaking hilarious, like Theo Von, Brendan Schaub, Brian Callen, all these Bobby Lee. So there's that thing that I actually rarely talk about. I brought up, I think, The Fighter and the Kids once recently, as far as for the podcast. I had an opinion. I was like, oh, like, okay, cool. I think I can chime in on this in my own words. But the rest of it is just like what interests me. It's like, well, I like leadership. I've recently just got back into listening to Jocko podcast. I guess you can say I technically fell off the wagon for a little bit, just because I started listening to other things. I started venturing out into the podcast world, because I found a bunch of comedians that have their own podcasts, and those interest me very much. And it's very much entertainment. But over the past 2 weeks, because even I was asked like, oh, have you seen Jocko podcast recently? I'm like, no, honestly, I actually haven't. I haven't kept up with Jocko in a long time. As far as podcasts, I'll still listen to excerpts and like here and there, to get myself going. And I follow him on Twitter, Twitter and Instagram. So like I get that type of news, where like if he's hunting or whatever he's doing, he posts his watch every day that he can. But as far as his podcast, like, no, like I haven't really listened to that. But I've gotten back into it. It's like, man, and the one I'm on right now, I think it's episode 299, or 298, one or the other. Because I already heard, so I heard Theo Von, but I heard 300, so I think it's 298. Anyways, so I'm going backwards so I can catch up. And I was like, man, like I really enjoy the history that comes with these episodes, especially the book reviews that he does. It's like, man, I really find it interesting, and I'm gonna have to follow my gut and trust my gut and get back and it won't be every episode, but that's also why I'm doing The Music Never Stops, because that's another element of what interests me. But I know there will be a time coming up where it's like, yeah, there's gonna be some, they won't be full book. Not that I can't afford. That's bad. That's actually not the right word. I can't go through a whole book. I can't talk about a book for 3 hours. That's just me. I prefer digging into the details and bringing out a chapter or a segment of a book. And so I'm gonna get back. That's another thing. I stopped kind of reading consistently because of all the podcasts that I listen to. But it's like, okay, trying to, again, and this is where the donkey comes in, because like, I like leadership, I like business, I like these history books, taking their history, history accounts. I like music, and so there's all these elements. So now it's just gonna be a matter of me of pulling myself back and saying, oh yeah, I can do this today. I can do this today. I can do this today, and then we'll go from there. So that being said, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I hope that we made some progress today with this episode and kind of diving into my brain just a little bit more for today. And we'll see you all very soon. Don't forget to take care of yourself. Take care of your teams. Lead from the front. If you have the team, you lead from the front. You lead by example. You help your team. You train your team. Ask for help. I need to get better at asking for help. And to reiterate, because I just said it, but you take care of yourself. I also need to take care of myself better, which is why I started running again, getting outside. An hour a day is usually my goal when I'm not working. When I'm working, it's like that. That takes up basically my whole day. So yeah, I appreciate it. We'll see y'all very soon.